Over the past year, my wife has turned her love for quilting into an Olympic sport. She has been busting out blanket after blanket after blanket, and with all those blankets comes a new project. And with 3 simple boards and $12, I'm gonna show you guys what we'll be working on. We will be building this simple blanket ladder. Now, this is a great project for any new woodworker, anybody who's just beginning to get into the hobby. And again, my wife has been asking for one of these things for months, so today she's gonna finally get what she's been asking for. Now to get started, we're only going to use 2 out of the 3 boards. The one board will be used for the rung of the ladders. So we're just going to set that one off to the side and we'll deal with the other 2, which will be used for the outside of our ladder. Now before we start marking this board up, I want to go ahead and get these boards cut down to the length of the ladder, and that's going to be about 6 foot. That's what my wife wanted, so that's what she's going to get. So with my boards laying side by side and flush on one end, I'm going to take my tape and I'm going to measure out to that 6 foot mark. Once I make that mark, I'll take my square and I'll scribe a line all the way across the board so that I only have to mark it once. 72 inches. Now we'll take these boards over to the miter saw and get them cut down. Now that our boards are cut down to that 6 foot mark, we'll take them back over to the table. We'll get them marked up so that way it's easier to put the cross members in on the ladder. Doing that now will save us a bunch of time at the end. We're gonna take our 2 outside boards and we're gonna lay them side by side. Now, after you lay them down, we're gonna wanna flush up the very ends of the board. And the reason we're doing this is because we're gonna mark out the rungs of the ladder. We wanna take our tape measure from the one end and mark out each individual rung. That way, once we start cutting all the angles and everything on the miter saw, it's much easier to do and it's much easier to place those afterwards. And this is why you put things where they go, because I cannot find my pencil. So for this next part, all we're gonna need is our square and our tape, and we're gonna come off of that end 18 inches. This will be the first rung of the ladder. I'm gonna grab my square and draw my line. So because these boards are 2.5 inches wide, I'm going to come off of this line 1.25 inches on both sides. That'll give us the center point for our rungs of our ladder as we go down the board, and it'll just make things easier towards the end of the process. Now once we get that first mark done, we're just gonna go down the board, rinse and repeat to all 4 rungs. Because I have the fanciest workbench in the world, I'm gonna use some clamps to keep my boards down so that way they're not moving while I'm measuring things out. Now the second measurement off of that end is gonna be 34.5. The third measurement's gonna be 51. And our last measurement's gonna be 67.5. I could have probably done this as I was marking things out, but I'm gonna mark off that 1.25 inches off both sides as I go down the line. Now with all of my points marked, I'm gonna remove my clamps and I'm actually gonna take my square and I'm gonna measure in 1.25 inches and I'm gonna run it all the way down so that way I can find the center of both boards. All right, I got my boards all marked up. I got the centers all marked where the rungs are gonna go. And again, this will make it easier towards the end of the project when we're putting the rungs of the ladders together. We wanna mark this out because when you start cutting on the miter saw and getting all the angles, it's gonna throw off the measurements. It's gonna make it harder to measure, and it's just much easier to do it beforehand. So let's take these boards over to the miter saw and get them cut down. Now before I start making cuts on these boards over at the miter saw, what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna change the angle at which it's currently at. Right now we're sitting square at 0, so I'm gonna rotate this over to 15 degrees because that's what I just made this ladder to. So for the first cut on the outside of the ladder, we're gonna start at the very top. I'll put a little picture up here and show you guys which cut I'm gonna be going with first. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark from the outside 1 inch in. At that point, I'll make a little mark and I'll line it up with my miter saw and we'll make that 15-degree cut. So come off the side 1 inch and we'll make that little mark. That's a square. It's called a square. It's a triangle, but it's called a square. What is what number? That's 85 and 75 and 65 and 50. What is that, 55?
50, 53, 25.
15 and 5. Good job. High five. High five. Good job. So to be making this first cut, I'm gonna be lining up my board long ways. That will give us that 15-degree cut there on the backside. Now, if you're not comfortable with using your miter saw with the board long ways like this, there's many other ways that you can cut your board, including a circular saw, a hand saw, and even maybe trying to do it a different way on the miter saw. But I'm gonna do it this way because it's gonna be quick, efficient, and we'll just get it done and out of the way. And just like that, we got our 15-degree cut. So now we'll take our second board and do the exact same thing. We'll measure off the one side 1 inch, make our mark, grab our square, line it up, and then we'll make the cut again long ways for that 15-degree mark. So with the last two cuts of the board, we're gonna leave our miter saw at 15 degrees. Again, I'll put a picture up here to show you guys which cuts I'm going to be making. And we're just gonna take the edge of the blade and we're gonna make it match up with that corner to give us that nice 15-degree angle on the bottom. With the outsides of the ladder all done, marked up, and cut down, we're gonna move on to the next easiest part of the build, and that's gonna be the rungs of the ladder. We're gonna grab that third board, we're gonna mark it 18 inches, we'll set up our stop block on our miter saw, and we'll get these things pumped out. Now, I tell you what, I can't wait for that one day in the comment section when somebody's like, Mike, you shouldn't lean your boards up against the wall, it's gonna cause them to warp. Guys, it's not that serious. It really isn't that big of a deal. I only have these boards here for a few days on end max. It's not like they're sitting here forever. It's fine. Now, with this being the rungs of the ladder, I want these boards to be perfectly square. So I'm gonna take the miter saw, I'm gonna take the very end of this board off to give us that nice flush edge to start with. And now that we got our flush edge, I'm gonna measure out 18 inches off this end. We'll put our stop block up and we'll get the rest printed out. Measure off the end of our board, 18 inches, make our mark. So I just realized that I do not have enough room on my miter saw. I don't have any table or anything to put a stop block. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this first cut, take this board, put it on top of them and just kind of copy them off of that. So now that I have our 4 rungs and the outside of our ladder all ready to go, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit it with the sander real quick to take off these sharp corner edges, and I'm also gonna sand it down a little bit. This wood is not the same quality of wood that I got when I put the Christmas tree together and the snowflake, so it's not as clean and as clear as this wood. So the sander will really help take that down, because if my wife finds out I tore her quilt, it'll be the end of me. All right, so now that we got our parts all sanded down and ready to go, we are finally able to assemble this thing. So I decided that what I think I'm gonna do is I'm going to take the rungs of the ladder and I think I'm gonna attach them. Instead of using brad nails, I'm gonna use a 1/4 inch Forstner bit here, and I'm gonna use 1 1/4 inch screws. Now again, this isn't weight bearing of any kind, so I don't have to worry about that. It's just my wife putting her quilts on this ladder. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to slowly assemble this thing by drilling these Forstner bits first, and then we'll be able to drill a pilot hole into the side. All right, so I think the easiest way to do this is just take both of our outside boards, we're gonna lay them on top of each other, and we're just gonna flush up on the one end. We'll make sure everything's all square, and then I'm gonna go ahead and use my clamps, and we'll clamp it down, and then what we'll do is we'll take our drill bit, and we're just gonna mark where we have marked out on the sides of the ladder. We're gonna go in the center there, and we're just gonna drill some pilot holes for our screws later on. So with our boards clamped together, it might be hard to see after all the sanding, but I have my lines here that I marked out, the 1 1/4 on both sides from the center. So this is the center line, and then I measured out 1 1/4 on both sides of that center point. That tells me that that board is gonna sit in between those two lines. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a pilot hole roughly about there and right there. I'm gonna kind of eyeball it. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to be on that center line, so that way I know I will be drilling a hole through the center of my rungs. All right, so now that I got my pilot holes all drilled up, I'm gonna start laying this out and then we'll get it put together. I'm gonna go ahead and take my 1/4 inch Forstner bit and I'm gonna go back through each and every single one of these holes, and I'm gonna take it down just below the surface, so that way when I set my screw in there, that screw head is flush with the surface. All right, with our holes pre-drilled and everything ready to go, we're finally ready to start assembling this thing. So the way I decided that I'm gonna put this together is I'm gonna put this outside board of the ladder, I'm gonna put that vertically, and I'm actually gonna take a 1 inch piece of scrap that I have and lay that down on the one side of the board, and that'll help keep this end of the board up as I drill the screws in through the side. Now, I will give you guys a little tip. It is much easier, so much easier, to pre-drill the screws, get them started before you actually start putting this thing together, because it'll make it so much easier. Trust me on that one. Now I did have a little bit of blowout here on this one rung. That's all right. It is what it is. It's off. It's fine. You didn't see anything. Now the last thing I'm gonna do before I call this thing done is I'm gonna add a layer of stain to it. My wife requested a darker stain, so that's exactly what we're gonna give her. And just like that, my wife now has herself a quilt rack that she's been asking for months. Again, for 12 bucks, you can build yourself something that's so much better than what you see online. I've seen these things going online for well over $100, and for 12 bucks, you just can't beat it. Again, this was a very beginner-friendly, easy build, requires minimal parts, a miter saw, a circular saw, a drill, you know, depending on what you guys have. Again, a very easy build. Was not that bad. I actually enjoyed it the entire time, and I can't wait to show it to her. But with all that being said, it wraps up another day in the shop. I hope you guys enjoyed this content. If you did, you know what to do. Hit the like, share, notification bell, all that good stuff. It really does help support the channel, it helps it grow, and it helps build the bigger community here. Again, I am new to woodworking. I am thoroughly enjoying sharing my progress and my journey as I get into this hobby, and I can't wait to see what else I come up with to build. And if you guys have any ideas, let me know down in the comment section below. I would love to build that stuff, you know, whatever you guys have to share. And again, the plans for this will always be free. They will be in the comment section, the description. They'll be somewhere down there. You guys will be able to download them for free and do what you want with them. But until next time, I appreciate you guys watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless.